Hey, everybody. Welcome to the People, Purpose, and Profits Business Coaching Podcast. My name is Brian Buck, and my wonderful host is
Kat.
And we are so excited today to talk to you about comparisons. Comparisons show up in so many different ways as business owners, whether we're small or medium-sized businesses, or coaches or consultants or any kind of solopreneur. Kat, you want to talk to us about what is comparisons to you and why is this an important topic to talk about?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I started out as a coach, and I noticed this tendency with a lot of coaches is you are inspired by people that have done amazing things, for maybe 20, 30 years. They, are the big names in the space. And you're over here thinking, well, I can do this too. I love what he's doing. I can see myself doing it. And all of a sudden, you're basically trying to be that person. And this has killed so many dreams because people start getting frustrated. They start feeling the pressure of the unknown, and the expectations are so high that they start losing, belief in themselves. They just basically dig themselves in a hole. And this is how I see comparison. People dig themselves in a hole just so they can, I don't even know. I think sometimes it's to stay safe, and sometimes is to prove to themselves something. So I'm really curious to find out for you, like when you started out or as, you came into this space, what has been your experience with, comparing yourself to others?
Yeah, I like that. I think one of the things for me, especially when I first began, was, you see the titans of the coaching industries. And I think, and I remember actually working with a coach and saying, I'm trying to, how am I going to have something unique to say when so many other people have said this before? Why even bother? And their piece that really gave me a lot of resonance was, if you share some of these universal lessons that other people have done, what you're doing is giving them your experience with those, or giving people your ability to help people navigate to make those actions live in their life, which I thought was a really fascinating way of looking at things, because there's all sorts of good advice out there, but so often we hear lots of good advice that no one's taking any action on.
Right.
And it could be because maybe the person who said it was so powerful and so out there that you go, well, that's good for them. That's not me. But when they work with me, I work with people who I resonate with. And because I resonate with them, now all of a sudden when I give them that advice, it then becomes something that they can actually do and work with. So to me, that really helped me get over that whole comparison trap on how could I ever be that person? So that helped me a lot. But I think the biggest thing that sometimes I struggle with would be comparing, like, oh, okay, well, they're huge. Why am I not huge yet?
Right.
And so that was the other piece. Is you always feel like you're chasing, and that's been a hard struggle.
And what I noticed with clients and people I've spoken to over the years, and one in particular, really stood out, is that the comparison is not necessarily done. We don't really recognize it. We're not aware of it. So when we engaged in a conversation and we started like digging deeper into understanding why she wasn't taking action in her business, she started recognizing that she was comparing herself to oh my goodness, two actually different people. And one of them is a person that she was looking up to, and the other person, it was the complete opposite, meaning I never want to be like this person. So what she was doing with certain beliefs, she was comparing herself to those people, and in turn she wasn't taking any action. First, because she couldn't reach the level of the one she really admired, and then because she never wanted to be like the guy that was just the complete opposite of her. So she was somewhere in the middle, constantly battling between the two. So it's important to recognize first and foremost, and like you said, I have the awareness of I'm doing this right now. And I want to invite our audience to pay attention to what they're telling themselves, who they're looking at, in the social media. Do you really truly believe that what is being portrayed by those people is true? Because there's so many things that people tell, so many stories that are just completely fabricated. And I want to invite you to be patient with yourself and understand that, real true success takes time. I don't care who it is and how good you are at what you're doing, especially when you're coming onto a different space like the online space. Things will take time. And don't believe everything that's out there, especially when it becomes a disadvantage, when it becomes a conversation that keeps you stuck, keeps you feeling small, keeps you feeling like you don't have what it takes to be the best or be good and have a business and live the lifestyle that you desire.
Yeah, you make me think, you know, especially in social media, we're all seeing everyone's highlight reels, and we're not seeing the struggle in between the Instagram photos or the struggle between the success post. And similarly is the overnight success. Like, you didn't see that it took someone 10 years to be an overnight success because you don't notice them until they're huge with lots of followers and clients and things like that. So I've been pretty healthy about being able to separate from that. But I also think comparison shows up in another way, not only where you feel beneath people, but sometimes you can compare where you think you're over people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I work with leaders and organizations, that's something that I've had to help some people with, is the leaders who see their teams as minions to enact their will. And their teams can pick up that you think of your team as less than versus being equal. And I just happen to be leading you, and that we have different roles and responsibilities.
Right.
And I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, like some of the small to medium-sized businesses, those kind of attitudes are greatly felt if there's a us versus them. Here's the leaders in their own little bubble, and here's what they think of everyone else who's enacting their will. But when you suddenly change that teamwork dynamic to I am, oftentimes we'd say I'm leading from behind and supporting people to achieve a vision. It's completely different, and we have to be aware if our behaviors might give people the impression that we think down upon them, or if our own internal dialogue is really looking down on people, and what does that mean as well?
Right. So once again, becoming self-aware. And I do think that, comparison can play a good part. And that's something that, I've learned, through my own struggles, is when I started paying attention to the successes that I've had, not necessarily, being measured on paper, meaning like a sale, but I started becoming more consistent with what I was doing, started getting on the phone with people, things that made me feel better about myself. So instead of, comparing myself with how great other people's are doing and how far behind I am, I started comparing myself with who I was, maybe a week ago or a month ago. And I started looking at the progress I was making as an individual and, as my own boss, because that was one of the toughest things that I had to do, being used for so long to work in the corporate America, and then like having to, look at my own hours and make sure that I showed up. And we tend to be harsh with ourselves. But if we start practicing, some type of a routine or some type of a schedule where we stick to it and we recognize the great things we're doing, we can see the success in the small things. And that's definitely
Yeah.
the only time I think comparison is useful.
Yeah, I love that. There's a guy named William King Hollis, and if you look him up on YouTube, he's got a book coming out. He does. I really, one of my fun things that I enjoy is the Germanic music with the motivational speaker. Like a lot of people use them in workouts and things like that. Anyway, he's got this thing called You versus You. It's called. Anyways, you can look it up. But what I love in there is he just talks about how we always just need to compare to who we were yesterday. That's the only comparison that matters. And I would even challenge people, and I do this with my clients, is compare yourself to an hour ago. So often we think of ourselves day to day. Oh, I'm better than I was yesterday. I'm going to do better. Like, okay, well, if you had a mistake or some kind of an issue this morning, that's not going to define your day. Like, okay, how can you be better? What's next? How can you get to that next level? And the more we just continually to do that, it's going to propel us. And I've talked about this too, is journal. Please journal. If you've never tried journaling, even if you just put it on some Post-its, even though that's a little difficult to see, it was amazing to me when I got serious about journaling. And I was doing the 60-day one for a while. And when I went back and I looked at that first month that I did, I was like, oh my gosh, I've come so far. And when we think about the you versus you, how good is our memory? It's usually not that good. And,
It's not.
even if you at least get some of the milestones to say, where were you 3 months ago compared to where are you now? Because
Yeah.
it's a lot further than you're ever giving yourself credit for.
Right. And like I said, a lot of us tend to just put a value on the financial success, meaning more money in the bank, more clients in our schedule. But it's the other, and I always say to my clients, you have to have the basics, the foundation in place, meaning your habits, your daily routines, and taking inventory at the end of the day. Those are the things that will keep you, especially when you don't really believe in yourself, or you may have a hard day, or something happened that threw you off your game. It's having those things in place and understanding how far you've come, and keeping your promise to yourself, to sticking with doing maybe 3 things a day. That it's
Yeah,
a huge success. And if you look at our brain, we're programmed to look at the bad things. Look, I'm not doing
right.
anything right, to keep us safe, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
go
well, yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say about that too is this whole concept of um, you have to sow to be able to reap. You're not going to get excited at planting a bunch of seeds and then walking out every day and you still look at dirt, you still look at dirt, you still look at dirt. And you go, why in the world did I even plant those seeds? And oftentimes we move on to planting different kinds of seeds or other things. And then all of a sudden we show up a few months later and oh my goodness, look at all this crop. And just recognize that planting the seeds is the right thing and that it does take time to grow. Like one of my quotes on my iPad, and I've been starting to work on this with some clients, is the whole idea of do things today that your future self will thank you for.
Absolutely.
Because when we do that, it all adds up. And you and I have had conversations about sales. Sometimes people say no to your sales, but then a year later they come back and say, I've been saving up, I'm ready. We can totally beat ourselves up at those no's and think, why bother? But what we're doing is we're planting seeds. And I think that comparison piece, to be able to remember, oh, I am now achieving the success because of what I did 6 months ago.
Absolutely. It's something that's, really fun that I add into the metaphor of planting, seeds is you don't see it like poking through the ground and then like picking it out and say, are you done yet? Are you done yet?
Right.
Because we do, and especially in today's world, we're so used to that instant gratification. That's kind of really what we do. And we go and like, kind of poke at people and say, okay, have you made up your mind yet? Have you made up your mind yet? So, it's kind of like a turnoff for people. And then the
Right.
other side of it is also, the weeds. And the weeds is your thoughts,
Hmm.
your own worries that a lot of times are really not justified. But because you are used to certain patterns of thinking, you believe them. And unfortunately, that keeps people from showing up. And I want to encourage our audience to start being their own best student and studying their own thinking patterns and understanding the things that they say to themselves. And if they need help, this is what we're here for. This is
Yeah.
what started this whole mission for People, Purpose, and Profits. It's our
Right.
desire to get people to look at what they're telling themselves and how they can create a better system to become their best version, to go out there and crush it, to be in their mission every single day and start letting those doubts just wash away.
Yeah. Well, I also think we could even do a whole episode on what are the weeds in our business. The weeds could be
Ooh.
distraction. The weeds could be self-doubt. Weeds could be,
Mhm.
continuing, making products without listening to your customers and
Right.
or wishing versus really getting that quality piece of what are their biggest dreams and problems and how well are we meeting those. So I think, but that comes down to comparison on, I think that is a good comparison is one, what does success look like? Have you defined what success is in your business? Not always financial, because the finances come when you are over delivering and giving people their results.
I'm a testimony.
So yeah, so it's like, are you measuring that? That's a great comparison. And I think about in back when people went to malls, the you are here. Uh, you need to have that sort of comparison because oftentimes we just kind of do stuff, but we don't necessarily make any kind of progress because we never really said you are here and where do we want to go. So we've got another episode on goals that was a few weeks back. Make sure you listen to that because that goal piece is so critical when we make these comparisons. I did want to add one other comparison before we wrap up is I think there is a healthy comparison when you work with mentors or coaches because you want to sometimes know what you're striving for. And there is a bit of comparison on who has been able to achieve that or help others achieve it. Because you have to want that. But the difference is you don't want to feel like crap because someone else has done it. I talk a lot about never disqualify yourself. I think comparison is bad when you disqualify yourself, but when you compare and say, I want that too, then that's a positive because then you are leaning in to say, how can I? What would that look like? What's the roadmap look like for me? So that way I can achieve similar or even greater results. Like for me, I've always had, I've never had to deal with anxiety. And for me, sometimes I just had limited vision. Like I didn't even sometimes know what was possible. It wasn't because I feared going after that, but sometimes when you see people who are achieving at amazing rates or amazing levels, and you go, oh, wait, I could do that too. They aren't the big, like if I meet someone who's similar to me and they're doing it, I'm like, all right, how do I get in on that? So I think that's a healthy comparison.
Absolutely. I mean, there's goods and bads to everything if you actually think about it. It's all a matter of how are you using it. And the way you explained it, it creates that little discontent that will make you want to wake up. You know, it may not be right away. Sometimes, you know, it takes a little while for people for it to sink in. But once you have that little voice like picking at you about going in that direction, about seeing the better version of the future, seeing the possibilities, you know, it's just an exceptional feeling, and I encourage people to try it. It's
Yeah,
what keeps
I
me
love that.
going.
Yeah. And my whole expertise is I call myself an ambition partner, is I help people with their ambition. And part of that is, are you being ambitious enough? Because so many people aren't ambitious enough. And so I help people see you have within you the ability, capability, and possibility to be able to go further than you're even talking about. And let's get you on that path, because that is, everyone that I work with, they want to make an impact to the world. They aren't just there for the money. I'm not your coach if you're just there for the money. But if you want to make the money to be able to have a greater impact in your family life, in your community, or in your profession, let's do it, because that's so much fun. And I know you share a similar heart for that,
Exactly.
which is
It's
why we're
called the Heart
co-hosts.
Mission Entrepreneur.
Yes, absolutely. Well, our heart is with our audience, so thank you for participating in the show, either watching us on YouTube or listening to us on audio podcast on your podcatcher of choice. Make sure you check out our Facebook page so you can get updates on the show, and our Facebook group so you can interact with Kat and I and have show discussions. So thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.